once again, everybody. Gordon Dill and consumer expert Diane Lee here to help once again. And Diane, this time we get to talk about maybe some good news for people. It almost sounds like a scam. Somebody out there might owe you some money.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I wanted to report on it, because I don't want people to mistake any email they might get as a scam. AT&T had a data breach, and many people are owed money.
If you know anyone who's ever been an AT&T customer, listen up. A class action lawsuit after 2 data breaches means you could be owed money, in some cases up to $5,000. I'm 7 News consumer anchor Diane Lee with the lowdown on how to figure out if your information was compromised and how to file a claim.
Nothing.
It's not so much a secret.
Well, wait a minute.
More like overlooked. An email from mid-August, long since buried with a lot of legal jargon.
Yeah, I do.
Joseph Carlton just learned he's 1 in 100 million, 109 to be exact, nearly all of AT&T's customers whose phone records were breached in 2024. Another 73 million current and former customers were part of a far worse 2019 breach. Hackers got social security numbers, birth dates, legal names, and account passcodes.
Are you surprised to learn about the breach?
Yes, considering we've been customers for many years.
Also news to many, a class action lawsuit against AT&T.
Now let's see.
That often overlooked email, your ticket to a piece of the $177 million proposed settlement. The notice comes from an administrator few have heard of called Kroll with a K, a good keyword to search since the email has the specific claim number you'll need to file.
Are you surprised to have found this?
Thank you. We'll never have known.
Tara Peace also never heard about the compromised data, but she did open the settlement email and submit a claim.
I am a little curious to see what it's going to be like, and what the dollar amount is going to be.
Attorney John White is not part of the class action lawsuit, but says after administration costs and attorney's fees are taken out, your cash payment comes down to the number of people who file.
There's so many of these claims that are being filed. The more information that you can give the claims administrator in regards to the losses that you have, the better off you are.
There are 2 ways to file, both through the website telecomdatasettlement.com. The first requires proof.
What kind of documents are they looking for?
Well, they're looking for bank statements. They're looking for credit card statements. They're looking for any documentation that will substantiate the loss.
Something that proves that you were hacked.
Correct.
So if you have documentation that the losses are fairly traceable to a breach, you can submit those for a higher claim payout, up to $5,000. The other method, which Peace chose, requires no documentation beyond the claim number.
The process was 5 minutes or less, basically a lot of reading.
Now, if you have a claim number and you do nothing, you won't receive any settlement benefits. And once the case is finalized, you'll have given up your rights to sue.
But what if you have no claim number? There's another way to figure out if you're a breach victim. Enter simply your phone number into the independent online tool att.pentester.com, and you'll either get a message that no data was found or one that's a lot scarier once you see the private information out there on the dark web. In that case, submit a question to Kroll citing the results. In a statement, AT&T told 7 News, while we deny the allegations in these lawsuits that we were responsible for these criminal acts, we have agreed to this settlement to avoid the expense and uncertainty of protracted litigation. Pentester recommends any victim freeze their credit at all 3 major credit reporting agencies. That warning speaks to the importance of getting the word out.
Yes, I'm very, very glad that you came and told us about it, because I certainly didn't know.
Proactive protection, likely worth far more than any payout.
I just learned something today. Thank you so much.
And here's a few more details. The deadline to file a claim is November 18th. And a warning, you may not hear back from Kroll in a timely manner if you do reach out to them. 7 News reached out at least 9 times in the last 2 months with no response. But we have helped people get their claim number, so do contact me if you have any problems.
I'm glad you contacted me about this, Diane, because I was a member of that class of people who were breached by this. I wonder, have you heard what the average settlements are going to be for people like me who did the sort of simpler route of claiming that money?
I think we can't expect a lot of money. And I say we, Gordon, because I'm also in that same field there. So, it could be just a matter of, maybe $15, $30. At this point, there isn't a very big understanding of how much, because it really depends on how many people file a claim. But the people who really have had sort of evidence of a breach and actually some losses as a result of that financially, those are the people that are going to be potentially compensated up to $5,000, depending on which breach they were a part of.
Well, to that point, I wonder, do I have to show... I mean, my data has been breached so many times, Diane. I mean, the Department of Revenue in South Carolina was hacked at one point. My doctor's office has been hacked. How do I establish that any losses I have from a data breach are because of this one, or do I have to do that?
It's easier than you might think. First of all, no one can file a claim without the claim administrator, Kroll, having sent them an actual claim number. However, I was one of those people that never got that email. I was interested in this story, and I searched for Kroll, and I searched for the word settlement, and no email ever came. But in researching this story, when I discovered Pen Tester, and specifically the Pen Tester site dedicated to this breach, att.pentester.com, without fail, when you put a phone number in there associated with any AT&T account, present or past, and that comes up as you were part of the breach, then you were part of the breach, because there's been a number of people, including myself, that this has happened to. Once we file then a query with Kroll, and we can kind of show you how to do that on that data telecom site, then data settlement telecom or whatever. I'll let you pull that up right now as we're speaking.
We'll pull it up here.
But that's the one where you would submit, you would actually press the contact us button.
This one right
exactly.
here, telecom settlement? Okay.
Yes, telecom's data settlement, yes. And that is where you would submit that query and say, on att.pentester.com, I submitted my phone number. It says that I'm a breach. Please check. And then consistently, everybody who has submitted a query like that has gotten a claim number afterwards. So it's as if Kroll doesn't have the total amount of people affected, but the AT&T.Pentester site does.
Well, I mean, 109 million people. Diane, there's what, 350 million human beings in the United States? So that's the odds of you being included in this, if you've ever been an AT&T customer, are actually very, very good.
That's why it was so confusing for me, because I hadn't even remembered being an AT&T customer. It happened so long ago. And so the point is, it's not just current or recent customers. It could go many, many years back. In fact, I was a customer, I think it was like 2012 that I was a Uverse customer.
Yeah, same. That's
mainline. Yeah, exactly.
So a couple more things that you mentioned, because it's tied to a phone number. Something I wonder is, obviously, identity theft would be our primary concern with this. People opening credit accounts and that sort of thing with our information. But does this make me more likely, to be susceptible to scammers coming at me in all directions because of my phone number or my email? They now know my name is tied to that. Does this just make me vulnerable to all sorts of types of things?
Right. It's all in one place. I mean, this is why, Gordon, when we were showing the visual of going on Pen Tester and typing, actually show you the visual of what happens when someone like me or you puts in our phone number, because the data that comes up is everything. It is not just your name and your address, but it is social security number. Now
that's scary. That's scary to see that.
It is scary. Now they will block out the first many digits. So I will say, for comfort reasons, it's not the entire social security number, but they know accurately what it is.
Comfortable to
no, I know. The whole thing feels horrible, right? When you see that kind of thing. So we couldn't, if we had shown that page, we would have literally needed to blur every single item. So that's why we didn't bother doing that.
I wonder, you mentioned freezing your credit with the 3 major credit agencies. I had to do that years ago. Have you done that?
I have done that as well. Yep. And I did it years ago too, after one of the other breaches.
Right.
And we should say, and I tell this every time, but it's so important for people to know, it is free to do. It does not take long. You do have to contact all 3 credit reporting agencies, but you can do it via phone or online. Fairly simple. I mean, I'm talking a matter of maybe 5 minutes per call. And on top of that, you can unthaw it anytime you want, and that doesn't take long either. But here's the thing to remember.
It doesn't hurt your credit score.
No, it doesn't hurt your credit score. Yeah.
Yes.
But you should also remember this. You do need to keep a file somewhere safe that has the password, because especially if you're doing this online, or I think it's even via phone, you need to be able to have that password to unthaw it.
Yeah, or you have no credit at that point.
Exactly.
In fact, now that I think about it, I think the first time I froze my credit with the credit reporting agencies, it's because one of the credit reporting agencies got hacked.
Yes.
And all of their data leaked out. And that, in that case, you're not even a customer of them. They've just hoovered up your data without your knowledge or permission at that point.
Right. Very scary.
Okay, so we've taken a look at this website. We do have this, I do want to pull up this pen tester
Yeah,
website
the pen tester.
here for
And this is an interesting one. And here's how this came about for me, this whole story, was pen tester dedicates specific searches to specific large breaches. I actually was searching pen tester for a totally different breach that happened a while back. And that's when it came up. I was part of the AT&T breach, and I was like, this must be inaccurate. Then I contacted pen tester, a legitimate organization. Basically what they do is they scour the dark web for breaches, and they bring that to light to let people know you are part of it, and to let the companies know.
Yeah.
And therefore they said, we have another dedicated site, check this out. And it's irrefutable at this point. I mean, that's where the data is on the dark web. It's for everyone to see, and at least pen testers letting us know about it. So
well, it's scary stuff. It is. The temptation is there, Diane, to almost throw up your hands. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. Like, my data has been hacked so many times that at this point I feel like everything about me is out there on the web. But you would urge people, I know, don't take that attitude. Don't take the resignation. Don't give up on this.
Yeah, it's still the responsibility, too, of these companies who take so much private information, including Social Security numbers. Like, why did AT&T need our Social Security numbers?
They don't.
But they have it. And that was stolen in the breach. And so the question is, if they're going to take information like that, these kind of lawsuits are an accountability factor as well. So if you're someone who believes that that is the case, then, by being part of the claim, you're making that statement there. By the way, I should note, Gordon, at the time that this story aired, the deadline was November 18th to file, but it's actually been pushed now back a month. So it's December 18th at this point. So you do have a little bit more time to figure stuff out. And I meant what I said in the story. If anyone watching this has any problems, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Simple email, dlee@wsba.com, and I would gladly help if you need help.
Yeah, it's right there below your name on the screen right there. That is the email address to ask any questions about this. Diane, great information. There's a very good chance almost all of you who are watching us right now have been hacked in some way and may be part of this AT&T breach, so do check that out. We've got some more great consumer advice when we come back from a quick break. And welcome back. Here to help with Gordon Dill, consumer expert Diane Lee. And Diane, I want to talk a little bit. I have two daughters in their 20s who sometimes worry they will absolutely never be able to own their own home. And boy, it is very hard out there. You've got some good advice. Yeah,
the struggle is real right now, especially. And the great advice is that there's so many programs that can help people on this path to home ownership that job number one is to figure out what they are and see what you might qualify for.
You might think buying a house is unattainable, but there are programs that can help. And now even renters can get in on the action by reporting on-time payments. I'm 7 News consumer anchor Diane Lee with a rundown of programs that are paving the path to home ownership.
What really sold me was the countertops.
How J.C. Pittman was able to afford this Chesney home on a teacher's salary has a lot to do with her focus on education. We're talking Home Ownership Assistance Programs 101.
Sometimes those loans can be very finicky in requirements. So sometimes it was kind of like piecing together a puzzle.
Pittman's own educator in the world of mortgage assistance was Scott Gregg with Prime Lending in Spartanburg.
She was able to come to closing with essentially no money.
That's because Gregg was able to match her with two assistance programs. First is SC State Housing. It's for first-time home buyers with income limits depending on where you live. The second, Palmetto Heroes, which covers up to $10,000 in down payment assistance for people who meet the income threshold and work as first responders, healthcare providers, and teachers.
It's nice to know that people kind of recognize the work that we put into the community.
Of course, not everyone is a Palmetto hero, but most people who are looking to buy a home have started out by renting an apartment.
What do you think of your rent?
It's expensive. Very expensive. It's my whole paycheck.
It's no wonder Eileen Tamayo is working towards homeownership. She's taking advantage of a program that helps your credit. It's called Make Rent Count and allows renters or landlords to report on-time payments to the credit bureaus.
It automatically goes to my credit, and I pay that on time.
And have you seen your credit score increase?
Oh, yeah.
Now, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to make rent count, but you do have to have made 12 consecutive rent payments and meet one of 3 criteria. You don't currently own a home, you have limited credit history, or no credit score.
And while some rental reporting companies will charge you for the service, you can get it for free.
So you pay $15 extra a month for this?
Yes.
Did you know you can do it for free through Zillow?
What?
Yeah, you should look into that.
Oh, I should.
To use Zillow's free rent reporting option, your landlord has to accept payment through them. If not, Greg says you can allow lenders to pull your digital rental payment history. But keep in mind, if your credit score is low and you don't use a Make Rent Count platform, homeownership is much more costly.
You're going to pay significantly more in interest than somebody that has, let's say, a 740 credit score. But even getting to that 620 is a big advantage for most lenders.
Greg says a few more programs to keep in mind are USDA loans for rural areas. Those offer 0% down payments. And while they have income limits, more areas of the upstate qualify than you might think. And finally, FHA loans. They focus on debt to income ratio rather than income limits. FHAs cap the typical 20% down payment requirement at only 3.5%. The point is, as Pittman can attest, education is key.
Would you have been able to afford this home without those programs?
It would have been to the bare tooth, the bare skin of my teeth, if so. But honestly, in retrospect, no.
And after our chat, Tamayo, who now has a credit score of 750, says she'll seek help from a mortgage lender so she and her husband can move into a home of their own.
Hopefully soon in the next year, whenever my lease is up.
Those mortgage loan officers, by the way, get paid by the bank, so you don't have to pay a dime. And since there are more than 2,000 down payment assistance programs in the U.S., they can help you figure out what applies to you.
Fascinating stuff. I have to admit, I got distracted at the beginning because I really did like her countertops. Those were very nice in her.
Weren't they beautiful? That was the first thing I said when I went into her kitchen. I was like, those are great.
They're
She's
great.
like, this is why I bought the house.
Homeownership is great. I mean, it's expensive and exhausting, but it is great, and it's part of the American dream to own your own home at some point. And it does feel out of reach for so many people. Would you say the credit score repair, or at least checking and maintaining that credit score, is job number one, or is there something more important than that?
That's a great question. I honestly think that is job number one, because whatever you end up doing, the higher that credit score, the better your chance of not only getting the loan, but getting a loan that you can afford. So being qualified for the loan and then realizing that, wow, my monthly payments are so much less than they would be if I were 100 points lower or 50 points lower. He mentioned that 620 threshold. By the way, that's kind of like your cutoff there. Like that's you if you're below that, chances of you even getting approved are very, very difficult. So, but the goal is to try to get into those 700s, and if you can, above the 800. We know that that's difficult, but that involves things, Gordon, like even if parents of 15-year-olds, go ahead and if you can add your 15-year-old to your credit card, put them on it, and then take their actual hard copy of the card, stuff it in a drawer. Yeah. Don't have them do a thing with it. Don't even tell them they have the credit card.
And then, for God's sake, make your payments on time.
Make your payments on time, and you are setting them up for good credit. So you can do things as a parent there. Yeah. And then there are some other things, obviously, like when they go to college, getting them their own credit card, telling them, do not, make sure you just pay it in full every month. It just sets up that credit history, and you treat it like a debit card.
So you mentioned several programs in here, and I'm willing to bet there are several others. Is there a central clearinghouse where I can go through and say, I qualify for this and this, but not this? Or do I need to sort of search and find all these things? It's almost like college. You mentioned that, sort of looking for scholarships. It's a similar process here, isn't it?
It's educating yourself. Now, you can start online, but it can be difficult to digest. So my recommendation, this would be step 2, is don't wait until you want to get the home. Early on, like a year before, or maybe even before that, meet with one of these mortgage lender experts, like Scott Gregg, the guy who I talked about in this story. He can, for free, do a rundown. He can make an assessment of your financials. And then he could say, look, considering that you are going into medicine, or you are a teacher, or you have this rent history.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, then you would qualify for these. And again, I mentioned at the very end, there's 2,000 of these programs in the U.S. That doesn't mean that every location.
I mean, 2,000 is a lot.
Right. That doesn't mean that every location has 2,000. A lot of those are because certain states and even some municipalities have their own programs. So that wouldn't overlap in necessarily other states. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of programs, and if it's difficult for you to digest that all, then go meet with somebody and talk with them and get their advice.
So to that point, let me pull this up here. This is SC Housing. This is a .gov website.
Yes.
So I imagine I can gather a lot of that information from something like this.
Exactly. If you're in South Carolina specifically, you can look through, you can scroll through this website. You see the Palmetto Heroes program that I mentioned. There's county initiatives depending on where you live. There's the housing choice voucher program. So all of these, there's a breakdown. It's pretty easy. You can see.
And in fact, asking which program is right for me. Which
exactly. Now that wouldn't have the entire scope because that doesn't include some of the federal programs, FHA and things like that. But at least it includes the local programs, and you can double up on those.
And in fact, I have FHA over here.
Right.
Yeah, wait.
One of those
Fannie Mae over here anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Fannie Mae one. This is the make rent count, and I want people to see this site. It's good that you're scrolling through it because as you go down a little bit, I mean, this sort of lays out pretty easily what this program is about. So it does state you have to make those 12 recurring payments. One thing to add, and it's a little bit complex about this, but if you miss a payment, it is not supposed to count against you. Now, what that might mean is that you miss a payment and then your 12 consecutive payments on time have to start over, but it's not necessarily counting against you.
But it's not going to lower your credit score.
Right, so there's no losing here if you do this program. But the whole point is you do have to get your landlord on board. So, hey, when you're searching for rent, when you're searching for a place to rent, you might want to check with your landlord. That might be in the listing as an attractive feature where they are a part of a program already. But also check in, like that one individual I interviewed, that you don't have to pay for it necessarily. If you do pay for it, it might be worth it. But when you can get it for free.
That's $180 a year if she's paying $15 a month. That's not nothing.
Exactly.
That's real money. I do have to say, look how easy this is to qualify for. I don't know what everybody's rent is, but I bet it's $300 or more every month. So,
people wish that it were only $300.
In fact, if you're paying less than $300 a month in rent, don't buy a house. Stay exactly where you are right now. You are living the dream.
Well, the woman who I spoke with in the story who did buy the house, the teacher, she was being smart, right? She was actually living with her parents to save up, but she couldn't take advantage of the make rent count situation then because obviously she was living at home. So it was great that she could take advantage of the other program, the Palmetto Heroes one.
It does appear that a lot of these are for first-time home buyers. That somebody who has already bought a house, a lot of this stuff is not going to help them, trade up or anything like that.
Many of them are, but not all of them are. And so that's another great question when you meet with like a mortgage lender, just to ask them, or one of these experts to ask them my status is right now. For instance, the make rent count has this criteria where you obviously have to make the 12 consecutive payments and other things, but you if you are not a prior home owner, that's one qualification, but you can actually be a prime have already purchased a house previously and still qualify if you have the other factors that you qualify for. So you kind of need to know what the criteria are on this.
And let's come back to this last point before we go. We have a couple minutes left. You do keep mentioning going to one of these mortgage experts. Does that mean I can walk out of there for free at some of these places with a literal playbook? Here's what I should be doing every month so that a year from now or 18 months from now or whatever my target is, here's the playbook to put myself in position to be in a house in a year.
Yeah, they can set you up. Now remember, they obviously don't charge you, but they do get their money when you actually go to get a loan through the lender. And so you would want to
so it's
be
not
someone
free.
Right. I mean, exactly. You won't be paying for it, but they would expect that you would, when the time comes, you would actually go through them probably for the loan. So you would want to be interested and more serious. But it is good to do, and I'm sure that they would love to establish that relationship, knowing that maybe a year from now you will be ready to buy that home.
Well, I think for a lot of us, it does help to sort of lay it out as a budget, almost step by step. Here's how I'm going to repair the credit. Here's how I'm going to build the money for the down payment. payment. Here's the target range I'm looking for in interest rates and that sort of thing. If you can lay it out in a strategy a year or so in advance, it does become more realistic.
Yeah, and none of this should cost you a dime, and it will save you, I mean, I'm talking thousands of dollars when you really look at what interest can cost you if you're, have a high interest rate.
Yeah, the difference in just a couple of points in interest over the course of 15 or especially a 30-year loan, you're talking six figures difference in interest payments on a house payment.
Yeah.
So it's a big, big deal.
Right. And also one more tip is when you do go to meet with a mortgage lender and you are really serious about buying the home and they are finally doing a hard credit pull and checking your credit and you're ready to go, pay off your credit cards before they check your credit, because part of your credit score is based on credit utilization, it's called. And basically, the goal is to be under 30% for your credit card. So if you have a limit of, let's say, 10 grand and you have spent less than 3,000, then you're under that. And if you actually pay it off and you've only, have $200 on there and you have a credit limit of 10,000, then you're way under the credit utilization. So that boosts up your score. So that's why people might notice their score fluctuating within the month. If they haven't paid off their credit card yet, their score will go down a bit. Once they do, it goes up. So that's another trick to get a better interest rate.
Every point on that credit score, it is really thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a house. That is consumer expert Diane Lee. Gordon Dill with you. We are always here to help. We'll see you again with a brand new episode next time.